I live? Am I live? Yes, I'm live. Hello, hello. Naomi Stockman from My Local Hypnosis. I'm talking about safety seeking behaviours. So this is week number 2. Last week we were talking about binge eating, and today I'm talking about alcohol. Now, it was going to be alcohol and drugs, but I think I'll just stick to alcohol because there's plenty to talk about when it comes to alcohol. When it comes to anxiety and depression and mental health, alcohol is one of our crutches, one of our go-tos, one of our coping mechanisms. It's something that gives us something. So let's delve right into that. If you're watching live, I won't be checking comments. I don't even know where my phone is right now, and I will check them straight after. So if you leave a comment, I'll get back to you straight afterwards. So thanks for watching. Okay, so first of all, alcohol. Most of us have been out with, most of us have experienced being drunk, most of us have experienced having a good time on alcohol. It's fun. Well, it relaxes you. It removes inhibitions. There are benefits of alcohol. There are good things about alcohol. It's enjoyable. It helps us to connect, to have a good social time, and it's a social lubricant, makes parties into parties instead of just gatherings. So what it does is it does actually make you feel good. Physically, it makes you feel good because it binds to the dopamine receptors. So dopamine is that reward part of us, the reward chemical in our brain. And so a dopamine hit is something that you get, say, if you do something rewarding. Now, that can be anything from Candy Crush to winning at something to getting a like on social media or getting a comment on a post. So here, if you give me a comment, I get some dopamine. How's that? Thank you so much if you comment. So those are ways that we feel good, and alcohol actually increases that feel good feeling in our body by binding to those dopamine receptors. But the thing about dopamine is the more you get, the more you need. Now, they did this experiment where they wired up these little rats, and they made it so that every time they pressed this button, they got a dopamine hit. And what they ended up finding is that these rats and mice, they didn't just go there and have a little hit and then go on about their lives. You know, what ended up happening is that they were just there like this, hitting the dopamine, because the more you get, the more you need itself. It's like a snowball effect with dopamine. And so these mice stopped eating, they stopped mating, you know, all that sort of thing. They're all rats, whatever they were. They ended up just there hitting on the dopamine thing. So you can see how when you get something like wine or alcohol and you start introducing it on a regular basis, it turns into not just a, you know, wow, that was a good night and I felt happy, but now I've got a bit of a hangover. It turns into like, I need more. And it becomes like that daily crutch for meeting our dopamine needs. Now, if you stop drinking, this is what happens when people stop drinking. They go into a slump, they go into a low, because now your dopamine levels are lower, because what our body does is it says, well, alcohol's present, it's binding to the dopamine receptor, so we don't have to make as much dopamine. So there's this adjustment thing in us. And so then take the alcohol away and boom, you've got a deficiency in your body, in your emotional state will reflect that of this reward chemical. Now, what happens is that over time, your body will then increase and it will all balance out. But that takes a little bit of time. And we all know that no one likes to feel uncomfortable. So, so that the thing about alcohol is it doesn't just give you a dopamine hit, it also relaxes you. So it's a relaxant, and it takes away the stress, and it also shuts up that mind chatter that's in your head. It makes your problems feel like they're not as big, not as heavy. They just makes everything feel like it doesn't really matter. In this moment, I'm just feeling good. So because most of my audience are women, and because the most commonly drunk thing is wine, but maybe you drink beer, maybe you drink cider, or perhaps you enjoy spirits. Either way, from my point of view, I'm just going to use wine. because most of my clients who drink, interestingly, this often includes men. You know, you might associate beer with men, wine with women, but no, men who drink problematically often drink, there's my dog behind me, often drink wine as well. So let's talk about that. So wine has an association. We all have an association with what wine means. Now, it's been marketed as classy, right? The glass is fancy. Everything about it is fancy. You sit in a fancy restaurant, you have a glass of wine, people swill it around, they smell it, they do that thing where they suck it through their mouth, and then they talk about the timber and the you know, the bloom and the, you know, it's crisp and clear, or it's oaky and woody, and, you know, you can have whole conversations about wine, you know, hold the bottle out like this. So we start off drinking in social settings. We start off drinking publicly in places with friends and having a good time. There's lots of laughter, lots of smiling, you know, lots of connection, and it's really social. So this is why when people have a problem with alcohol, it's not the same as having you didn't sort of go to some shady dealer in the back of a train station. You didn't have to hide in a public toilet. Drinking alcohol is socially acceptable. There isn't that stigma unless you're laying in a ditch with a brown paper bag. You are, you know, you're just a person enjoying a glass of wine like anybody else. But when it becomes a problem is when you have to start hiding it, or it's becoming impactful in your life. It's stopping you from doing stuff. It's affecting your health. And we'll look a little bit about that in a moment. But even looking at, you know, history, Benjamin Franklin was quoted as saying wine makes daily living easier, less hurried. And hey, don't we all have stresses around time? I'm going to make that into another subject another week, because I'm actually exploring that in me at the moment. So it makes daily living easier, less hurried, with fewer tensions and more tolerance. Now, who doesn't want fewer tensions and to feel more tolerant? Wow. Okay. So that's where we're at with wine overall as a socially viewed acceptable thing, right? So where to from there? Because at some point it can become a problem. If you're starting to drink daily, if you're not just drinking in social settings, if you're drinking at home, then perhaps that has then started to become a problem. So somewhere between the weekend drinking and Tuesday at 3 p.m., a lot of people come and say, look, you know, I drink a bottle of wine a night, or they have a specific time, you know, after I've picked the kids up and I know I don't have to go anywhere, or, you know, things like that. So there might be activities that you always have a glass of wine with, like cooking. I always have a glass of wine when I cook, and I cook every day. So then you notice that the recycle bin's starting to have more and more wine. You're starting to stock up on it. You're worried you're going to run out. You maybe have, you know, family that are starting to comment. So alcohol is the only addiction that you can die if you quit cold turkey. I found that really, really fascinating. Most people don't know that. They think that, you know, you picture somebody on a serious, you know, intravenous drug, you know, they're shaking and they're in rehab or whatever, but alcohol is actually quite a dangerous substance to be addicted to, and also dangerous to quit unless you're doing it properly and safely. So let's just see what your answers are to the following questions. So if I'm going to read out some stuff that you might indicate that you have a problem with alcohol, and just mentally, like, tick off if you have any of these. So I often plan to have just one glass and then I end up drinking the whole bottle. Or I drink when I'm alone, so it's no longer social. I'll drive to get wine when I'm at home, like not because you've got a party on, but because like I want wine right now and I'm going to go and drive and get it. I think about wine through the day. So think about going home and having that glass of wine and look forward to it, obviously. Sometimes have blackouts from drinking. This is a big one and quite alarming. I can't drive when I'm needed to because I've been drinking. And that's like that thing, you know, mummy can't take you, I can't pick you up because I've been drinking. Having driven when you shouldn't have driven because you had to and you'd had too many wines, but you drove anyway, hoping not to get caught. If your family are starting to say that you ought to stop, or you have a partner or a spouse, or it's something that your kids say, and perhaps your kids even might associate wine with being a mum, with being an adult. Like, say, for example, if your kids were asked, what's mummy's favourite drink, would they say wine? And having to apologise for things that you've done when you were drinking. So this is just a couple that I sort of put together before I jumped on. I'm sure there's professional lists out there, but these are just things that came up for me that my clients have actually said to me. And I want you to remember that, like, there's no judgment here. This is a totally judgment-free zone. Life can be hard. We all have our ways of coping. Sometimes they're not healthy ways, but at least we're doing our best. And look, we all need things that soothe us, to relax us and help us with stress. Alcohol is a safety-seeking behaviour. I know you're not unsafe when you drink, but if you think about it, it makes your problems go away. It reduces stress, takes the load off your shoulders, and it's avoiding something. And we'll go through that in a minute. It makes you feel less heavy, right? So alcohol alleviates anxiety. Yes, that's right. It makes you feel good, or at least feel better for a bit, but then it also actually causes depression because it's sort of like, you know, it relaxes you, but it is a downer, and it also takes those dopamine levels, they drop afterwards. And so then you kind of go into a depression at times. So it's a win-lose situation. Now, you know about the marshmallow test, don't you? And if you don't, I'm about to tell you about it. It's where they take a group of kids and do experiments on them. They're the guinea pigs. So they take a group of kids and they put them into a room with a one-sided, you know, one of those see-through mirrors that looks like a mirror, but then on the other side, the scientists are watching. And they put a marshmallow on a plate. So you can either have this marshmallow now, or you can wait, and it might be like 10 minutes or something, not very long, but feels long for a child. You can wait, and then you can have two when I come back into the room. And you watch the kids, and they're there, and they're looking at it, and they all last about, you know, a minute and a half, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. But most of them will eat the marshmallow now, and they won't make it through whatever the amount of time is to get the second marshmallow. And the reason for that is that we are all wired to want immediate gratification. So we want things now, like we want to feel good now. We don't want to feel yucky and feel good in 3 weeks or 3 years or 3 months. We want to feel good now. And so because of that, it's easier to have a drink now than it is to not drink and get the dopamine levels back up and start to live an alcohol-free life. We know that that's easier. It's easier to give in. It's the same as quitting smoking. It's easier to just light up another cigarette. But the long-term effects are going to be negative. So chances are that if you are drinking at least a couple of times a week, that you're probably also having some issues around weight. Essentially, alcohol is the equivalent of sugar, and unless you're reducing your food intake, you're likely to have had some issues with weight, or you could be increasing your exercise, which if you increase your exercise, at least you're getting those good endorphins from the exercise, right? But if you're reducing your food intake, then you're also looking at not getting enough nutrients. Now, if you haven't got enough nutrients, this can also lead or contribute or compact the impact of anxiety and depression, because in order to make serotonin and dopamine and melatonin for sleep and all that sort of stuff, we all need to have enough nutrients in our body to have the correct functional mental state. I mean, you know yourself, if you don't eat well, you don't feel good. So alcohol, wine, why can't it just be good for us? Why does the easy way always have negative impacts? Why is the stuff that feels good always bad for us? Why isn't lettuce addictive? It's always the way, isn't it? And I mean, we all know that we can eat the vegetables, we choose something else. We all know we can not drink, and you know, when we feel like drinking, sometimes we do. Now, why is it that some people make that choice to lean on alcohol as their solution, as their comfort-seeking behavior, as their thing of choice, and others don't? You know, maybe I had a crappy childhood, maybe you had a great childhood, maybe someone else had a crappier childhood. Why does only one of the three of us decide to use alcohol as a crutch? It's because we all have different things that work for us, and we all have different things that are meeting different needs in our lives, and we've all learned how to meet those needs. And so it's going to be vastly different for everyone. And that's why, like I talked about binge eating last week, maybe the binge eater doesn't have the alcohol problem, maybe the alcohol person doesn't have the binge eating, or maybe they have both. I've been through both in my life. Admittedly, my alcohol thing was when I was very, very young. So from age 13 to 16, in high school, I was an absolute terrible binge drinker. I'm talking at least once or twice a week. I was incapacitatedly drunk, abnormally so. I was drinking at home by myself. I was drinking at school. I was drinking when I was meant to be at school but wasn't at school. I was drinking during sport. I was drinking at church. If there was alcohol I could get my hands on, I was drinking it. It didn't matter when, where, how. Usually I was trying to do it with other kids. So, you know, I was probably the peer pressurer. So what changed? Why did I stop drinking at 16? Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because I always talk about identity, because our identity affects which programs we're running. And this is all programming, right? Everything you do is programming. In fact, when you in a day, you're going to have like however many different thoughts. 95% of those thoughts, or 90% of those thoughts at least, are going to be the same thoughts you had yesterday. We are robotic. We repeat everything. And we're all running programs. So when I was 15, I left home. When I then had a boyfriend, look, I was getting some needs met from him. Like I now had some, you know, connection. I also didn't have parents, so they weren't taking responsibility. I then had to take responsibility. That felt good. Felt good to be able to take some responsibility, which I hadn't done in the past. I then got a job. That started giving me a feeling of, you know, achievement. And then I fell pregnant. No, I'd already stopped drinking before I fell pregnant, thank goodness. But my mother didn't drink, so I didn't have any programming around mothering and drinking. There was no mummy with a wine. It was very much like mummy in the kitchen wearing a floral apron kind of stuff. And so that identity, who I was, changed. Who I believed I was, not who I was. And so therefore, because my internal identity changed, that changed how I showed up in the world and the behaviors that I chose to do. I was no longer interested in drinking now, because what happens is you will never behave in a way that's incongruent with your programming or your identity. I mean, when I say you will never be acting, I mean, we can fake it, we can deliberately fake it, but our natural, like that flow that we have, is always going to align with our identity, our internal identity. So now, the truth about human beings is that we seek feeling good. We all want to feel good. And anything that makes us feel good can be abused, right? Anything like our mobile phone, our food, our work, our relationships, anything that makes us feel good, you can turn it into something unhealthy. You can use it as a distraction, as an avoidance, as a need meeting thing. And it's always easier to use something like that to get an instant fix than it is to go and do the work and do the therapy, do the healing. It's fast, it's instant, but it's not cheaper, not in the long run. Because the cost of using these safety-seeking behaviours that are also self-destructive and self-sabotaging is that, aside from the fact that we also pass all this stuff to our children in ways that we're not even aware of, like people say, oh, I don't do it in front of my kids. I don't, I try and shield my children. And the truth is that all our stuff that we pass on to our children, we're doing it, most of communication is non-verbal. It's, we pick up so much from our parents that we're not even aware of. And aside from that, it impacts so negatively on our health. It's very difficult to be healthy while you're slugging down a bottle of wine a night. I mean, long term, seriously, think about it. Aside from the fact that the things that we don't heal, the emotional stuff in us that we don't deal with and face and heal. And people say like, oh, I'm over my childhood. I'm over my divorce. I'm over this. I'm over that. It's not really affecting me now. The truth is that when nothing is affecting us, we don't have these unhealthy behaviors. So we don't lean on alcohol unless there's a reason to be leaning on alcohol. So the thing with repeating emotional stuff is if you don't heal it, it repeats. So if you felt alone as a child or as a young adult, then that's going to cycle right back. And at some point in your life, you're going to feel alone again until you deal with it. If you felt abandoned, it's going to cycle right back and again repeat. If you felt that you were, unimportant, not listened to, responsible for other people's emotions, unsupported, all that stuff just loops right back around. And so what does this have to do with quitting drinking? How do you quit drinking? My answer, you don't. You don't stop drinking. Just keep drinking as much as you like. Focus on don't focus on the symptoms, focus on the problem that's causing you to drink. So let's start asking, what is it? What is that problem? Why am I drinking? So here's some questions. Why do you need to drink? Well, I don't. I just enjoy it. Yeah, I hear it. What does alcohol actually help you with? What does it help you avoid feeling? What does it give you that you don't have when you don't drink? So all the answers lie within you. You've got all your own answers. Somewhere within is some kind of emptiness, some kind of pain, some kind of fear, some kind of heaviness, some kind of strain or stress. There is a feeling within, or a belief that gives you a feeling, or something. There's something within, something. Maybe some lies, maybe a trigger. What does alcohol actually mean to you? What does it represent? When you think of wine, what are the images that come up for you, or alcohol or cider or whatever you drink? What does it allow you to be, or who does it allow you to be? And what does it allow you to experience? What does it actually give you? So with insidious addictions like alcohol, they don't come at you like a danger, like, oh, don't ever drink, don't have that, don't take a sip of wine when you turn 18. No, you'll be instantly addicted. No, they're insidious. They creep on you. They come to you as like a warm friend, as a reward, you're 18 now, you can drink, you can go to clubs. A friend who says, I'm always here and I'll make it better. But it's not really a friend, no. Not when you consider that it's destroying your health, destroying your family, causing issues for you of, specific to you. Everyone's issues are different. But when people come to me, they don't come to me and say, I drink a bottle of wine a night and I love it and I don't want to stop. What people come to me with is, I am drinking and it's a problem, and I'm finding that I'm having to take days off work, or I'm drinking and I'm having blackouts, or I'm drinking and I don't want to drink this much. You know, that people come and say they want to stop. That's not a friend. Alcohol is not your friend once it turns on you and starts controlling you. You're now the victim and you're being bullied by this addiction. So like all toxic relationships, the toxic relationship with your wine or your beer or your cider, you can't break up with them until you are ready. You need to be the one that's ready. No one else telling you to stop drinking is going to make you stop. People only leave relationships when they realize some things, like those, you know, deal breaker things, the deal breakers. Like, you know, I'm not getting what I want here. I never will get what I want from this relationship. It's not going anywhere. I'm wasting my time. I deserve more. And once people reach the certain point where they know that they're going to be okay without, like, I don't need you anymore, I'm leaving, like that kind of thing. That's the thing. That's the point you got to get to with alcohol. You need to know that you're ready to cut. And if you've thought about breaking up with alcohol in the past, if you are ready, or you think you might be heading towards being ready, get a pen and paper, just rewind the video, rewind back and journal a little bit around those questions that I asked. When you're ready, you can start doing the work on yourself. Like I said, it's not about stopping drinking, although stopping drinking is then going to be something that you choose to do as well. But for you to just address the behavior of drinking, that safety-seeking, self-soothing, comforting, coping mechanism behavior, if you just take that away and you haven't done any work on yourself to resolve the real underlying reason, then all that's going to happen is you're going to end up finding another behavior that's going to need to fill that gap where the other one was, you know, relationship, food, overworking, exercising, something, you know, phone addiction, whatever, something. So you're the one that has to change your life. You are the one that makes the decision. You are in complete control. If you don't feel like you're in control in your life, then start doing the work. Time to do the work when you are ready. So now I want to also speak to those people who are family, friends, or if you have somebody in your life who has a drinking problem, so it's not you with the drinking problem, I would encourage you to shift your focus off the drinking. Now, this goes for all problems, eating disorders, everything. Take your focus off the symptoms. The symptoms are just a distraction. They're just the thing that's there. And that's just the thing that's been big enough to grab your attention. Oh, we have a problem, Houston. The problem is really deeper. It's on the inside. And so like everything with these things, no one can solve it for you. You can't solve someone else's drinking problem. You can't solve someone else's emotional problems. They've got to be ready. No one that goes to therapy from being forced usually has fast results. It's always got to be self-initiated, self-directed. Healing is always the way. Now, being a support person, that's really tricky because, you know, you've got the enabling and then you've got that. And look, there is another safety-seeking behavior where you are addicted to helping, rescuing, and saving other people. So check in that you don't have that one. But other than that, if you are in a relationship or you love someone who is an addict or has an alcohol problem, the best thing that you can do for that person is to fully put your energy into your view of them, their capability, their capacity, their ability to be able to be well. I urge you to view them as a person who will be well, to know that they can do this, that they have everything within them, that you don't need to rescue them. Yep, that's right. You don't need to rescue them. The message you want to give them is, I believe in you. I support you. I don't accept that behavior. There are things that I will not accept, and this is what they are. So if you're going to drink, you don't do it under my roof. If you're going to choose this, you know, if you're not ready to get help, that's fine. But this is what's I'm going to do to protect myself from my side. Martyrism, enabling, rescuing, these are not supportive behaviours. A person needs to be allowed to experience the consequences of their own behaviour, feel their own pain in order to gain motivation. Like if you are sitting near the fire and it's warm, you're going to stay near the fire. If you touch the fire and it's hot, you're going to move away. So allow people to have their own natural consequences in a way where you can still tell them, I believe in you and I support you and I love you and I'm here for you, but not like that, and not in any ways that is going to allow you to continue destroying your life. So we'll leave all other addictions, all other substances for another day. If anything I have said today has been helpful and you'd like to learn more about what I do, working with people, helping them with anxiety, with depression, PTSD, complex PTSD, eating disorders, addiction, alcohol, whatever, you can contact or connect in the following ways. So you can either join the Anxiety Free Life Facebook group. That's just go to the My Local Hypnosis Facebook page and then look for groups. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's just Naomi Stockman, or even just comment below. I always try to reply, and then, you know, obviously you can then let me know if you're going to send me a private message and I'll engage with you directly. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Goodbye.